Silly YouTube. Today for you guys, I wanted to do a video sharing a little bit about my experience of passing some big French exams recently. Recently, I've had to pass both the TCF, so the Test de Connaissance du Français, and the TEF, the Test d'Évaluation du Français. Now, I know that there are many different reasons why you may want to pass one of these tests. Perhaps you need it to get into a French-speaking university. Perhaps you need it as part of an immigration procedure like I did. But I really wanted to speak about this today because I think there are two things going on. There's the level of French, okay, and then there's the exam and your level of preparation for that exam. And I really believe that even if you're, just a very weak B1, you can get a very strong B1 score, even a baby B2 score, for example, in a French test, if you know the exam strategy well and you can really hone in and focus on what they're going to ask you. And in case you guys are wondering, I did get a C1, which means that I'm classed officially as fluent. The highest possible level you can get is C2, which is bilingual. So I'm going to take you guys exactly through what is tested and how I studied for it so that you can best prepare yourselves as well in order to get a really good result on your next French test. So basically the TCF and the TEF are so similar that I'm just going to go through each of the sections. So you've got two levels of comprehension. So first you've got the listening, and then you've also got your understanding when it comes to the written text. And then you've got the written test, so your expression écrite, and then you've also got the speaking, the expression orale. And this is probably the most hardest one to prepare for. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I did in order to prepare that a bit later in the video, but this one's super important. Okay, so you usually start off with the listening or the comprehension orale. And this part, you're going to be listening to a variety of different audio clips. And so it's very phased. And the first thing you usually start off with is listening to very short clips, which you can listen to twice. And there's often an image in front of you. So for example, I had a question and it had 4 different types of furniture. And it was a very short clip of someone moving house and they described 3 of the 4 items. And basically it asks you, which 3 of the items did the person talk about? The next step is very minimal exchanges in kind of real life situations. So it may be someone asking for information about what time his train's going to leave, where you have to identify some key information. Of course, as you get to the next level, you have actual real snippets of conversations between 2 francophones. And then as it gets more advanced, you can have actual audio clips from radio shows or television emissions. They do also like to test you with your different accents. So you can have someone speaking with a southern accent, someone speaking with a Quebecois accent, this kind of thing. And of course, at these more advanced levels, you only get to hear the clip once. So how do you study for something like this? Well, of course, you can train your listening in French by listening to French series and watching French movies or subtitled on Netflix or YouTube, for example, which I will link down below. That's great for the conversational stuff. But the majority of time, it's really news clips. It's really journalistic kind of interviews or conversations. And I find especially at the more advanced levels, it's really around politics or, things happening in society. So people may be talking about strikes or something like that. And so I use the websites of 2 French television channels to train for this. They've actually got a special section to train for the TCF. And the first one is TV5 Monde, which I'll link below. And the second is RFI. And as you guys can see, when you get to the websites, you can actually select which French level you are, and it has all sorts of like little documentary or television clips. They're called emissions, I guess we would call them, in French related to your level. So it can be from very basic French to more advanced French, and I found it an amazing resource. There's also a website, www.ciep.fr, and they have sample clips and sample questions. So they actually provide you with entire examination papers that you can use to practice, and that's always a great way to understand what's expected. Okay, so let's get into the toughest part of all, which is the oral expression, so the French speaking. So of course here, depending on your level, they're looking at your ability to present yourself, say who you are, what you do, share an opinion, and then really express your convictions at a much higher level. Of course, everyone worries about their accent, but really, as long as you can be understood, they're not judging you harshly on your accent, really. So something I really want to say is this is not an opportunity for you to learn really fancy words and trying to impress your examiner and really kind of drop a sophisticated language if you're not fluid in the basic. Don't worry about trying to learn perfect words off by heart. Here it's more around your ability to get a point across. It doesn't have to be perfect, but your ability to be understood by a native French person. So the speaking test itself has several different levels. So the very first question that you can learn an answer to is, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What kind of things do you like to do? Do you work? Do you study? The basics, right? The next level up is they like to see that you can seek information or help if you need it. And here they often ask you to use the vous form. So for example, you're going to call someone on the telephone, pretend obviously, and use the vous form to ask for information. The example that I had in mind is that I saw an ad to be able to enter a competition and win tickets to a radio show. And so I had to call them up and asked about all the terms and conditions. How do I enter? How many tickets are available? What happens if I win? When can I go to the show if I win? All of that kind of stuff. The higher level you get, the more they want you to express your conviction and really even debate with someone. So for example, in my test, I had to convince a friend that they should hire this party planning service that I learned about in the paper for her child's birthday party. So I really had to convince her that it would save her time, they would be in charge of everything, they would create a really wonderful experience for her child, they would be able to, basically provide an awesome service, and yes, it costs money, but the reason I think she should invest is because XYZ. It's one of the hardest things to study for, that oral expression. And so what really, really changed my life was using the Lingoda online French professors. With Lingoda, what I like about them is you have access to native French professors at basically any time of the day, 24/7. So I could book in at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., like late at night if I wanted to. And you can really focus on a whole array of topics that could be covered in your oral expression. Topics like debate whether zoos are moral or not, or talk about climate change, or this kind of thing. And by doing it and by practicing with your professor, of course, at your level, you just get really, really used to having to come up with those spontaneous questions or to share your opinion on the spot. I've done a whole review video on Lingoda if you're interested in knowing more, which I'll link up here. But something that I do want you guys to know about is that they're about to open the Lingoda Marathon again. The Lingoda Marathon, again, you'll have more information in my description box, but it's a really accelerated language learning program where you can take 30 French lessons per month for 3 months, and if you succeed and if you complete all of your lessons, you'll get a refund. So you get about 800 euros worth of courses for free. Or you can do the half marathon and do 15 courses per month for 3 months and then get 50% refunded back to you. It's just a huge digital event that they run, and it's a super cool idea, and it's basically the goal is to accelerate your language learning like that. You need to sign up before January 14th, 2019. And I've also got a discount code which is study19. So it means that you get a discount on your entry fee as well. So rather than the 5 euros it was originally, it will only be 50 cents as well. So if you guys want to use that, I'll put all the information you need to know in the description. And through using Lingoda, that's how I trained for the oral part of the test, and that's how I got a really good score on it as well. Now the next section is around your comprehension écrite, so understanding what you're reading, and also there's another part of this which is proficiency in grammar and the language structures. So they may actually ask you to understand what you read, or also pick out the mistakes in a sentence, or select the right word to slit into the sentence, for example, if that makes sense. So there's kind of a grammar element to this as well. You may be therefore tested on conjugation, on spelling, on use of the subjunctive, this kind of thing. So you've got to kind of roll up your sleeves with this one and do the hard work and actually learn the absolute rules and basics of French grammar, conjugation, that kind of thing. So I used 2 things to do this. I did a whole heap of grammar lessons with an online French professor using Lingoda, which was really helpful. And then I complemented that by going through these kinds of books. So I thought I was a B2, so I have B2 books. I mean, I have these books that were for the TCF, for the DELF. I mean, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day what the test is specifically, because they're all effectively tapping into the same competencies, right? And so it was really by just going through chapter by chapter in these books and answering multi-choice questions and checking the answers against my response and all of that. That's how I learnt the grunty part of the skill. So I'm going to link down below to my personal selection of books that I have personally used to train for tests like this. That's going to be down in the description box for you guys. Okay, so the last part of the test that you need to prepare for is the written part, the expression écrite. And again, this one's quite tricky to prepare for, but I really believe that the more reading you do, the more writing you'll be able to do. So all of the things that I mentioned for the reading, you'll absolutely be able to apply when you're writing, because you just absorb the way that sentences are structured, you absorb the way that things are spelt. So that really helps as well. Now, what they're going to ask you to do at the more basic levels is really just write 90 words. It's not much at all. You may have to write a small email or a small text message asking your friend to go on vacation together or something like that. Of course, this goes up and up towards writing blog posts or replying to someone in an internet forum, again, expressing your opinion or disagreeing with them on something. Like, for example, you may have to defend the point that you don't think that zoos are moral, for example, all the way up to essays at the more advanced level. So for the written part, there are a few things. So Lingoda is really good for this as well, because as you're interacting with your French professor, they often ask you to chat them and to spell things and to write sentences and things like that in the chat box, and then they correct you in real time. You also have the sample papers on the CIEP website. You can, of course, practice in your books like this. They often provide sample answers in the answers section so that you can kind of compare what you've written to what they suggest. Obviously, the tough thing is that when you don't have someone to help correct you. So if you really don't have access to any French people, you don't know anyone who knows someone who's a French teacher or a French assistant or anything like that, there are websites online where you can find French pen pals and do language exchange programs and that kind of thing. But really, as I said, I think reading and writing go together so closely. So if you really deep dive into the reading, the writing's going to come more naturally. Cool, guys. So I hope that was a useful kind of guide as to how I personally prepared to pass the TCF, TEF, and get a score of C1, fluent in French, whatever level you guys are at. I hope that this was useful for you, and I wish you all the best with your French tests, whatever they may be. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below. I'll definitely get back to you, and otherwise I will see you guys next week, next video Wednesday on the Not Even French channel. Until next time, see you guys in the next video. À bientôt!